In spring, Craig Parry told us he was eagerly awaiting the start of a drill program at Vizsla Copper's newly acquired Palmer Project in southeastern Alaska. Last month, the company says it had intersected thick intervals of massive, semi-massive, and massive sulphide mineralization within the south wall zone. Assays are pending. The company also had a headline number of 304.8 meters of 0.48 copper equivalent at its Thira discovery in central British Columbia. Craig, welcome back to Mining Stock Daily.
Thank you, Michael. What a time to be back. Copper prices at all-time high, and we're drilling copper across every one of our projects, I can tell you at the moment. So never been a better time to invest in copper stocks. And, we direct people to look very closely at Vizsla Copper, because I think what we've got ahead in the next couple of months is quite extraordinary. It'll be the most important few months of the company's history.
Let's get into it. Let's start with your Palmer. So per your last news release in July, you've drilled about 2,200 meters of a 10,000 meter program up there in southeastern Alaska. You are focused on the South Wall system. In 2023, that system had drill results showing 43.8 meters of 8.22% copper equivalent. You wanted to further define and expand the high-grade copper-rich core at South Wall, Craig.
Yes, that's right, Michael. So we've been drilling assiduously away there for 6 weeks or so now. Actually a little bit longer than that, 7 weeks. So, and as you allude there, we're drilling in and around that incredible Zone 1 high-grade copper zone, at least one of the rigs. And I should say we've got 4 rigs turning at present, 2 in British Columbia. We'll come back to those, and the 2 at Palmer. And one of those rigs is looking to expand that very high-grade copper zone. We've drilled a hole that's about 50 meters away from a whole CMR 23171. So if people look at on our website, you can find out all about that. And one of those holes, that hole there was 24 meters at 11.15% copper equivalent. It's pretty hard to keep a lid on those sorts of things when you're pulling out big rods of massive sulphide from the ground. So we put out a market update there a couple of weeks ago, just pointing out the fact that we're drilling through these high-grade massive sulphide lenses. Assays are taking a lot longer than we would hope to turn around. Already we're seeing sort of 2-month turnarounds at least on assays here in BC and Alaska. So that's a little bit frustrating. But we should have some of these results back from those high-grade zones over the next month, and then continuously throughout the year, given that we're going to be drilling most of the year on most of our projects. So we're testing the expansion possibilities of that high copper grade Zone 1. We're also out there drilling targets at our HG target, and we're about to start drilling at the AG deposit. The AG deposit is important because it does have a very high-grade zone through it as well. Some of the moment the AG deposit is 5 million tonnes at nearly 4% copper equivalent, and that includes a small zone of about 220,000 tonnes at 7% copper equivalent. So some extraordinary grades to come out of that ag zone, that have come out of that ag zone. So we're looking forward to getting the rig set up on that and expanding that high grade zone. And at the moment, the entire resource as it stands now is effectively 18 million tonnes at about 3.1% copper equivalent. So that's, an extraordinary deposit in its own right. But what we're seeing coming out of the ground suggests that it has potential to be much bigger than that and even higher grade. So I'm excited about that program. The Palmer Project's very much our flagship project, and it is really delivering for us. So look out for news from Palmer as we go here, and I'm very hopeful that we'll make another discovery there.
You did note that the South Wall, one of the drills at the South Wall system was terminated due to some faulting. Any concerns there just regarding system continuity?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. It wasn't such faulting as so much faulting that we've recognised there, but what we think is that we found a void, probably caused by the chemical dissolution of some of the sulphides and copper mineralization there. So that created a void, and that seems to be potentially a feeder zone for this part of the mineralised system. So that's an interesting target in itself, looking for the feeder zones below or around these very high-grade zones. Could potentially deliver a lot more high-grade tonnes. So it was interesting to hit that void. It was a little bit frustrating because we lost the hole, but we stepped out a little ways and put another hole down, and that's what we reported in that news release from a couple of weeks ago. So, and those assays are, we're eagerly awaiting them. I think, the bulk of the Palmer assays will start coming in the next month, and should be, pretty exciting times from there.
It's mid-August as record this. You are planned to do about 10,000 right now. And we did see, I think you did about, you announced 2,200 that you had done with the last news release, which was July 20th. You're on track right now. You're going to be able to get the full program done before you have to wrap up for the fall.
Yeah, no worries at all. The drilling window ends sort of early to mid-September. We've had a few weather delays so far, but nothing too bad. So yeah, I think we'll get that 10,000 metres done, and Michael, we may even add a couple of thousand metres more given the results, or given what we're seeing come out of the ground there. So, but we'll keep the market informed of that as we go here. But gee, it's looking good. It's an incredible high grade deposit.
Let's swing down to central BC, and then we're going to talk about Thira. In your July 16th release, Thira is described as, I think this was your quote, one part of a much larger system with multiple porphyry centers across the corridor. You had a step up from the single 800 by 500 meter zone, and you're now launching a phase 2 drill program of 8,000 meters.
Yeah, exactly, Michael. We've now, we haven't found all of the edges to that Thira system yet, so that's looking enormous. It's as you say there, it's probably now 600 metres by about 900 metres. We've only drilled down to 500 metres so far. Listeners can start doing a bit of Excel work and putting some numbers around this, but given that we've already got that large Poplar resource that's 8 kilometres away to the north of us, that's already over 300 million tonnes at around that 0.4% copper equivalency, it's not hard to see that this Thira system, the Poplar Project, and all of its porphyry hypotheses will amount to well over 1 billion tonnes at those sorts of grades in the not too distant future. We're not there yet, but that's the reason for the drilling. We've got one rig there at the moment. We've left one down at Wood Jam. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but the second rig will move up there, continue that Thira drill out. And of course, we've tested a couple of other targets to the west of us, Camp Lake and Copper Pond. We hit some interesting mineralization there. I think it's too early to say that we've made a discovery, but we're back in there now, and I think things are looking good. So I think that's a good chance of leading to another discovery of another porphyry hypothesis in there, separate to the Thira one. And then out to the east of Thira, we've got 3 or 4 other targets that, I would expect that at least one of those will be a porphyry hypothesis, given the scale of the alteration, that quartz sericite pyrite alteration you see across that zone. So there has to be several porphyry hypotheses in there to give you that much alteration and that volume of altered rock. So, you can't predict these things, but I think that we're onto something there, and we're a chance of making another discovery whilst we keep drilling out these, this very big Thira system.
When are you going to be publishing updates on Wood Jam?
Wood Jam, we're still a little ways away. We took during the fall, the spring breakup, rather than making a mess there at Thira, we took the rigs down to Wood Jam, where we've got better access and better roads and things, so we could keep drilling during the breakup, and that's that's delivering for us. We are testing a couple of other targets out there, nothing to report on that front, but we've just been drilling. There's a very high grade component to Wood Jam on the Deerhorn system. I think that at the moment there's 33 million tonnes at 0.7% copper equivalent in that zone. Dr. Chris Leslie, who and Steve Blower, who lead our exploration programs, are very keen on this Wood Jam, this Deerhorn part of the Wood Jam property, Look out for some news there. I'm quite surprised that we've seen quite a lot of sulphide and even some semi-massive sulphide in that system in the past. We're testing a long strike step out there of a target that Chris Leslie generated, and it's early days, but I'm pretty confident we're going to surprise the market with some good results out of Wood Jam as well. So, across the group, across the company and our projects, there's some incredibly exciting things happening. We're hitting there at Wood Jam. We're hitting, growing that Thira deposit all the time and its surrounding porphyries, and then potentially another discovery coming there and some outstanding drill results from that Thira project. And then at Palmer, again, you've seen in that last news release the tenor of mineralization that we're pulling out of the ground there. And I think, at this HG deposit that we're testing, there were a good chance of discovery is there. So as well. So here you are, you've got a company with $100 million market capitalization, massive resource base already on its books, including the high grade Palmer and the lower grade BC porphyries, testing targets at each of those projects, and it's delivering, and assays coming. Now is the time to own Vizsla Copper. I think that, no one will regret investing in the company over the next couple of months with all of that going on in the background. And then lastly, we are out there on the acquisition trail. And I think, we're seeing some really interesting things. One project in particular that really suits what we're doing. It suits our strategy of having a pipeline of quality, high-grade projects that we can bring into development ourselves. So look out for news on that front. It's going to be an incredibly exciting time for investors.
Craig Parry, thanks for speaking with Mining Stock Daily.
Michael, always a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.